Okay, and next up for our third panelist who's going to give their talk is Sam Van Leer from the Urban Paradise Guild. And then we will have our quick panel discussion and a lunch, which you may have seen is already being set out. So, very exciting. It'll be prepared as soon as possible. All right, come on up, Sam.
Okay, so hi everybody. Good morning or afternoon, wherever we're at. So this is going to be a little different. My name's Sam Van Leer. I'm president and founder of Urban Paradise Guild, and I'm covering two topics. One of which deals with composting. The other is actually about glass. So a little bit about me. Um, I'm the president and founder of Urban Paradise Guild. I founded UPG in 2008 to fight the causes and effects of climate crisis. We do this through urban forestry, urban agriculture, habitat restoration, education, and policy. So a lot. This is our motto: be climate active. And that means don't be passive. Don't wait to be hit by the climate crisis that's coming at us. Get out there in front of it and start fixing things now. So I also wear a hat as an inventor, and of course, I invented Urban Paradise Guild. I invented a disaster aid system for Puerto Rico. We sent about 4 million pounds of aid. I designed a solar electric catamaran, data architecture, and also a pretty cool beach trash can. And then there's stuff in development that I can't really talk about. So here's an example of an invention. I designed these back in 2008, and they're now the standard beach trash can for Miami Beach. Unlike their predecessors, these things have a much longer service life, 17 years so far. The old ones were being destroyed in 1 to 2 years. So let's get into the compost. And I wanted to kind of give you a sense of what my framework is. And if you're not used to thinking process, I'm laying it out here. So first of all, work has a flow. In other words, the stuff that you're handling actually moves in a physical direction. And if you take that into account, it's going to make your life easier. It's easier to streamline processes if you understand how stuff fits together. Next is to minimize wasted motion. And of course, motion is energy, motion is time. So streamlining those processes. Minimize wasted materials. I think that's a given for this symposium here, but not everybody thinks in terms of, okay, how efficient are we? Are we throwing out valuable materials? And here's a hint: yard waste, yard cuttings, not trash. Okay, so this is the Miami model for yard cuttings. First of all, they pick it up at the source, somebody's yard. It gets transported, and then it gets dropped off at a landfill or the incinerator, which hopefully won't be resumed. So, and then you actually have a return trip empty. So in other words, they go out and pick up the next load and they go out empty. So they're not actually delivering anything. So a lot of waste, a lot of time, a lot of energy. Now, this is a much more optimized model, much stronger model. And this is actually how I understand the city of Los Angeles does their yard waste. So basically, the yard waste is picked up at the source, it's transported and dropped off at a composting facility. And then the truck returns empty to the source to pick up the next batch of green material that needs composting. Then to do the delivery, you have compost loaded into a truck. They take it out. They actually will put it into people's rolling bins, which is freaking awesome. I wish we had it here. But well, that's doing what you can. And so then that repeats. And so again, the truck returns empty. So you're burning time, you're burning fuel, you're causing climate crisis through all these wasteful steps, the ones in red where it says return trip empty. And this is the concept that I have in mind. So here, the concept is that the truck picks up compost, carries it out to the source, the source of the green waste, delivers the compost, picks up fresh compostable yard clippings, and this could go for food scrap as well, although not in Florida, obviously, because, well, just because. So the cool thing here is that what you're seeing is it's a closed cycle. In other words, all of the fuel that's being burned, all of the employee time that's being invested is actually cyclical. You don't have a return trip empty. That to me is the antithesis of efficiency. So what do we get with that? Well, municipal savings, both in money and in CO2. So you're not creating that pollution. You're actually that much more efficient. It means that your employees can focus on delivering service rather than driving through traffic more, just as one example. So I think that this is a beautiful thing and it is possible. However, as far as I know, there is no truck designed to do this. And so this is a challenge to people who are innovators. If you can come up with the truck that does the delivery of compost and the pickup of green material to make that cycle a closed cycle, then we can potentially get these adopted in places like LA, who knows, maybe even Miami, if we gained enough of a soul to actually take on our waste problem. So I find it exciting that we have this potential. But the thing that's really important here is that our existing composting systems are based on trash. They're based on the assumption that we're using the same trucks and the same technology and the same basic set of tools to haul this stuff around. But where it's broken is, of course, the compost is not waste. This is a resource. This is biomass. And so we can do better. Okay, so the second concept here is what I call the universal jar, and this is glass. So for those of you who are expecting composting, well, we're taking a side trip. So again, work has a flow. Next, minimize wasted motion, minimize wasted materials, same basic principles. But the hint here is glass is only semi-recyclable. Only about 30% of glass is actually recycled. And there's a bunch of good and bad reasons for that, but that's the bottom line. And a lot of it has to do with the quality of the material as it's coming out of the recycling system. Can they identify glass for recycling together? Can it be processed effectively? Is it clean enough? All of those things make a difference. However, there was a time, raise your head if you have actually returned a bottle or other container for a deposit. Raise your hand. Holy crap, holy cow. So anyway, that's awesome, but a lot of people in Florida have never experienced this. And it seems a little odd to them, but the reality is that that's based on an older system where it wasn't being returned for recycling, it was being returned for reuse. And it's a very different thing because when you're reusing a material, you're not using the same kinds of energy. So we have some precedents that we can tap into. Now, if you've ever gotten milk delivered in a milk bottle, you're older than I am, I think. But it is something that normally happened where families would raise their kids on milk delivered by a milkman. And what the milkman would do is they would bring next week's bottles, deliver them, and pick up last week's bottles. So again, a closed system. There's no wasted energy in terms of the delivery. There's no double round trip. It's not necessary because they've already figured that out. And then you've got, well, I'm sorry it's not showing up so well, but that's a rack of Coke bottles. Anybody seen the green glass Coke bottles that are like so tough you could like, you could beat somebody up with them? So those things, if you look at them, you'll notice that a lot of the older bottles, if you find them, have wear marks on them because they've been reused so many times. And they're built more solidly with the expectation that they will be reused so many times. So the cycle for returning one of these bottles is not to destroy it and turn it into a new glass bottle. The cycle is to return it to where it can be used. And so this is, again, this is not new tech, but it is something that I think we should rediscover. So the concept for the universal reuse jar is to have a set of jars that food companies can opt into using. They can say, all right, I want to put all of my products into a half-liter or a quarter-liter jar, or whatever the English equivalent is for those things. And obviously, it's something that would have to be voluntary. The sizes are common sizes that the manufacturers want to use. And all the manufacturers who opt in are using the same jar. They are not using some arbitrary aesthetic to define what their package is inside of. That's for the label, okay? They can express themselves on the label. The concept here is they're all using the same jar. So the jar that you get full of mayonnaise, not that I use the stuff, it probably came full of peanut butter before, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the jar design should be durable so that it can go through a zillion reuse cycles. And I do mean a zillion, because the whole beauty of this is we keep on reusing. They should be distinct and easy to identify, which shouldn't be a big deal. And in fact, having a distinct design that's attractive is a selling point for anybody who's a manufacturer. They should also be easy to identify through AI scanning, because that's going to be how a lot of material is going to be processed in the future. And when a manufacturer needs replacement jars, they just order them from their local recycling center or reuse center, as the case might be. But they would come as a bottle ready to fill, get sterilized in the factory, refilled, recapped, and probably there would be metal lids that would end up being recycled as steel. So again, the whole idea is to make it easy for people to do the right thing. And so if you are returning your recycling and reuse to the grocery store, well, that's kind of how it used to be. And so that might end up going directly to the recycling center from there, or it could be that you are just dropping them in the glass bin and they get pulled out. So there are barriers. One of those barriers is going to be corporate adaptation, and it may take some funding to allow them to retool at a level that will allow them to actually practice this. So we have to actually think in terms of how doable is this? How attractive is this? Because here we are in America, a land of, well, business apparently. And then we also have regional recycling and reuse acceptance. So in other words, there has to be a framework that allows that to happen. So I'm with Urban Paradise Guild, and we appreciate anybody's support who is able to. You can donate $5 a month or $5 once or any amount. We appreciate it. And I think that's it before they button hook me out of here.